Well, howdy and welcome back. Today we're going to be making hammer tongs out of about 9 inches of 5/8 round stock. We're just going to be doing a lot of drawing out under the power hammer, so we'll get lots of good power hammer scenes. But first, let me show you some of the other forgings that I've been working on in the shop. Right here, these are a couple of elephant's foot flatters. These are kind of a Hardy Locomotive Works original or exclusive product. These are kind of modeled after an old flatter that I found in a barn in Prince Edward Island. Someone also ordered a great big 6-pound Stelter cross peen. So I forged that up yesterday. This is totally forged to finish. No grinding on this at all so far. Of course, the faces need to get ground and the heat treatment needs to get done and all that kind of stuff. There's the JR. In other exciting news, there's a brand new, to me, anvil here. This is a Norris anvil. 100 weights are 0, 2, and 26, so that adds up to 82 pounds. Looks like there's a spider that's made its home on it already. But this here is, again, a Norris anvil. This is a very antique one. You can see kind of from the shape of it, it has kind of the colonial, almost looking shape. Obviously, a wrought iron anvil. And if you notice, if you look very closely at the face, you can see those lines in it running along it that looks almost like it's wrought iron. And that is probably because this does not necessarily have a high carbon steel plate welded onto it. Like most other anvils, it's before that time. And so it probably has a carburized wrought iron face that's welded on, which is really, really neat. You can see the Norris stamp right there in beautiful shape. It doesn't have any remnants of being repaired, which is interesting. You couldn't, otherwise you'd be able to pretty clearly see the weld line, but they did either a really good job of repairing it or this is original condition, and it is mint. Just awesome. Yesterday I was able to get the reins drawn out on the tongs after the jaws that you saw there. I'm just out for a walk though this morning in the pasture. We had some cows get out and had to deal with them all morning, and it's actually the last day that the longhorns are going to be here before they get shipped off tomorrow. I know lots of people, especially on Instagram, have been seeing them and liking them, so let me show you that. So they're just hanging out in the tall grass in the wind. That one there, that white one, she has the biggest horns of them all. There's some speckled ones over there. Anyways, they're just having a grand old time. There we go. It's 11:30. It's late. We got the first bend and the drawn out corner done on all the hammer tongs. So this is what we're dealing with at the end of a couple more heats. See the curls there? My wife just nailed them. They're very short. They're not as much folds over as they are upset curls. For the drawn out corners, the bend is put in the correct place, then the corner is drawn out so that the outside angle is much narrower than the inside angle. So we end up with this growing corner, which those angles are going to be set so that we have the proper structure. And then the small flat spot is made, and that is where the hole is going to be punched. Howdy everyone, quick announcement. If you're wanting to get anything off of the Hardy Locomotive Works website, like hammers or any of the new products or music CDs, and have them arrive in time for Christmas, make sure to order by Sunday, November the 27th, and that's coming right up for you people that are just watching the video after it was posted. Also, upon popular request, I now have premium hickory hammer handles for sale on the website. $35 Canadian plus shipping. Gets you an assorted batch of hammer handle colors, and if you want to pay a little extra, you can get all dark hickory or light hickory or two-tone, whatever you want. They also come with the walnut wedges, so you have everything that you need to rehandle your hammer or make a brand new hammer. We are refining it with an inside and an outside angle. This is so that it looks nice. It also enhances the structure and makes it easier to adjust because it gives us a proper and very definable measurement on the inside and outside, at which we can measure the golden ratio for the bending. I have that radius inside after the bend, and so I can pick the exact measurement where I want it to be. And then once I set the corner, I can then hammer the sides, or the tops, I guess I should say, using both edges of the anvil so that they are the angles that they need to be. And then also you can see chamfer kind of radius those edges. This corner is obviously superior. It's stronger to just a bent bar, and that's why we use it in the tongs, and of course also for those other reasons mentioned. On to the next process another day. So I've gone ahead and put the second bend in all the tongs and set the angles on the corner. This batch is reasonably consistent as far as lengths and angles and all that, but it's still good to just take a few minutes and pair them up so that, say, ones that are a little longer go with matching ones and ones a little shorter go with matching ones, and etc. So to make this really simple, there's 4 golden triangles within a proper pair of fitted hammer tongs. So here's the 1/2, and the relationship between the first bend and the second bend here is golden ratio measurements. This is approximated. Of course, the golden ratio as a number expressed is 1.618, and then it's an irrational decimal. It continues on forever. And so we pretty much consider the first measurement here as the 1, and then you times that by 1.618, you get the other measurement. Again, 2.5 to 4 is just approximate, but that's basically what the hammer tongs are bent to, and so that measurement is from here to here, and then here to there, like that. The benefit, other than aesthetically pleasing, is that this type of bend over a given length of material will make the tongs open up as much as they can before the jaws become parallel. So that's all to say that it'll give you the most amount of versatility and the best hold across the size of steel. If you want to learn more about golden ratio stuff and designing and how some of the rest of the tools are designed, make sure to take a blacksmithing class here. Even in the beginner class, we make a little wedge and notch cross like this, and we learn about the golden ratio and how to apply that to something simple like that. Now that we have the one side punched, we're gonna go ahead and use that as a reference to mark out where the other hole is gonna be. So for example, if I were to take this pair here, I would just line them up, see where they are gonna meet, and then I would use a center punch right in the middle there to mark it out, and then punch the hole in this one. Next, we got to cut the rivets out of 3/8 round. We'll rivet them, finish them. Hopefully we can get all the tongs done tomorrow. So this little slot opener drift opened all the holes up to 3/8 round yesterday. So ideally, you would have it, pretty much the same size as the rivet so that the rivet would be perfectly straight when it goes in to both halves of the tongs, and so it would be easier to rivet it over. It wouldn't want to fold over as much. But I made this drift slightly proud, and that's because as the drifts get used, they do actually wear out. They abrade away. The last drift that I had, the same size, that has drifted 100 odd holes or so, got to the point where it was actually slightly less. And the last time that I made a batch of hammer tongs, I actually had to drill them all on the drill press after the fact of drifting them, just to ream them out kind of, because the 3/8 rod would not fit in. So I made the drift slightly proud so that it can wear away a little bit before I have to make another one. Therefore, I need to account a little bit more material in the rivets that I'm going to cut, or the stock, the blanks to make the rivets, to account for that space so that as they upset and they fill the hole, so to speak, that we're still going to have lots of material on either side. Another important thing is to make sure that I rivet these together the correct way. You'll notice that because these tong halves are the same, it's kind of interchangeable whether you make them right-handed or left-handed. That just refers to either the jaw that bends out to the left is on the upside if you were looking at the tong, or if it's the other way around. Basically it has to do with how the reins fit in your hand. And the way that I'm going to be riveting these up is all right-handed, which is standard to how tongs have been. Even left-handed people generally end up using right-handed tongs because it's normal. It just has to do with what your muscle memory is used to. And so the tongs are also at this point completely locked together. You're never going to get them undone when you put a hot rivet in on cold pieces of metal, because the rivet shrinks when it gets cooler. So it pulls those pieces together. That's the same reason they can hot rivet boilers and hot rivet steamship hulls together. That hot rivet, when it cools, is going to shrink the cold steel together and create a good seal. Now we're going to use this to our advantage as we adjust the tongs, and pretty much what we want to adjust is, while keeping this bend at 90 degrees, we want to get the jaws so that they meet, they're touching, that they're in line with the center line described by the reins, and this is all while the reins remain parallel right on top of one another. That is the general adjustment that you're going to get with these tongs, and that should work for pretty much everything you want to make with them. reins are basically a lever. Well, and so are the jaws. And so as you are squeezing them, there's more and more force being applied as you get closer to the fulcrum, which is the rivet. And so generally, you need to have a thicker area as you get closer to the rivet, and then the same on the other side. You notice how the tongs nicely taper from the rivet down and the rivet up, and that's purposeful. And that's why levers aren't small at the bottom and big at the top. It's the other way around. Every time you see a lever, whether it's on the steam hammer or whatever, it's always going to be smaller at the top, larger towards the bottom. It needs to be the same way on tongs, and needs to be the same way in both planes. This plane, when you're looking at the tongs head on, you can see the taper, and this plane, also thickest here and tapers down from there. So now we can go ahead and start putting our hot oil finish on them. Obviously the area around the rivet that I just heated up is going to be too hot for this, but we'll let that cool down. It's probably still, I don't know, 600-700 degrees Fahrenheit or so. I'm going to stick it in there. So I'll just work that oil in there and then rub it all down. So that's the first pair done with the JR touch mark on it, the lovely hot oil finish. The last steps are to trim the ends of the reins so that they are level, and then put a nice little decorative bend in the bottom and hot oil finish the bottom. I'm gonna quit now, have a break, and go pick up a milk cow. Let me show you that. So there's the new milk cow. Here's Lydia with her new milk cow. Or someday going to be. She's very interested by it. There it is, the last pair of hammer tongs to be finished. It's about 1:30 a.m. Time for bed. The tongs are the most complicated, finicky project with the most processes, the most heats, and probably the biggest rate of failure. Luckily with this batch there was only one fail here, and that is that I somehow punched the holes at the wrong length, and you know, I don't know, it just ended up not quite right. You can see it just looks a little funny. So I might try and fix that and keep them for myself or something, but that's pretty good. I'm just generally really happy with them overall. You can see that I finally made some time for a nice haircut. The next thing to do is to make the drifts. Well, actually, maybe I should make handles before then. We'll see. Something's got to get done tomorrow. On to the next one. I did want to answer one other commonly asked question that I get about these tongs, and that is, why is the rivet down here instead of at the first bend where you'd think it would be? And that's because the farther away that the rivet is, or the fulcrum point, from the point where the jaws touch, the wider range of stock size you can hold on to with a pair of tongs. Here they are holding on to a big hammer, a 4.5 pound square rounding hammer, for example, and you can see that the rein spread is manageable. It's good. It's perfect. One might ask, why doesn't every tong have the rivet so far from the gripping point of the jaws? And that's because there's less leverage. The farther it is away from the gripping point of the jaws, the less leverage, the less squeezing force. On a pair of hammer tongs, we don't need a whole bunch of squeezing force because they're used to manipulate the hammer or the tool or the billet that you're working on and flip it over, spin it, all that kind of stuff. So that's why having the rivet so far away helps on the hammer tongs. It's for the speed at which they open up and the light grip.